work, tracking down intelligence and, real world operations and so forth. So, congratulations on that. Uh, your gift to to America right now. I don't know about humanity, but definitely Americans. So thanks for joining us again.
Dude, appreciate you having me back on. I love coming on here, especially on a Saturday. I don't get to do much on Saturday except work in the yard. So it's always nice to kind of go out there and talk about what's happening in the world.
I know. Yeah. You just kind of like do it in your mind a little bit. What's going on? You do a little research, you go do a little work. And I was doing some house cleaning today, and I was, thinking about the show coming up and what we could talk about. So we were talking about Nigeria, where they basically went in, probably Special Forces, SEAL Team 6 or Delta. They pretty much, took the number 2 out in ISIS. I think mostly with drone strike. I don't know if they have to go in and like identify. That's probably what they did, but otherwise it was pretty much a done deal with the drone. The drones are amazing these days.
Yeah, and that happened. So coincidentally, that happened on the same day that one of Hezbollah's top commanders that was in the United States was arrested by the FBI. And this is kind of an interesting part because, over the last few years, you, I, Nino, Scott, all of us have been talking about the Hezbollah infiltration over the southern border due to Joe Biden's border policies, the 23 million people that came over. We know Todd Bensman back in 2022 testified in front of Congress specifically about Hezbollah's Unit 910. This is IRGC trained special forces unit out of Hezbollah. And Todd Bensman, he worked for the intelligence aspect of the Texas border control. And he testified in front of the U.S. Congress about how they had identified thousands of members of Hezbollah's Unit 910 that came over this border, and they were told to let them go by the Biden administration. And so this is one of the things that we've been looking at, because we know that if they're going to release a virus on the world, that they will do some worse things, right? These people have no care for human life. And so we've all been waiting for this type of firestorm event where they storm all the different cities, they take out power, transportation, command and control. And we've seen over the last, 14 months, the Trump administration kind of dismantling a lot of that network, starting with the cartels and going after the gangs and the low-hanging fruit. And I even talked about this last year, how Tom Homan's team that was traveling around with the DHS, they were going city to city, and they were only in there for about a week to 2 weeks, but they weren't doing much. They weren't doing many, deportations, but they were doing recon and surveillance. And what they were doing is they're going in and taking grandmas and grandpas, low-hanging fruit. And I said, well, the reason why they're doing this, and I had it from good information, is they had a tier 1 team with them that was a black team that was doing reconnaissance. And what they were doing is tracking the movement of the various Hezbollah and other terrorist cell members. Because when you go in there and you start raiding these places and you're taking out the low-hanging fruit, people begin to talk, people begin to move. And this is what they were watching. And now we see the fruits of all of this. This one commander from Hezbollah had plotted 20 different terrorist attacks around the United States of America. They were getting ready to do it. And it was interesting because I said, they took one guy out, but he's plotting 20 attacks across the country. This means there's a network. This means that he's probably coordinated with hundreds, if not thousands, of different people for 20 different attacks. But they only announced that one arrest. And I think that was strategic. I think what they're trying to do is get everybody else talking and get them to show their hand and go out there after these guys. And then you have this IED that was found underneath the dam in Georgia. Yeah. So if I don't know if you heard about that, you had a dam, just regular maintenance. They go out there and there's an IED underneath this dam. They found that. So a lot of this aspect of what I consider to be the firestorm seems to be being dismantled, which I think is pretty huge.
Wow. Yeah, no doubt. And I saw some videos. Remember when they were doing some raids up in Chicago area, and I saw one of the raids that they did. I'm like, that's tier 1. That's tier 1 movement there. So they have been active, like you're talking about. So that's very good insight. I've been saying this for a while, that they have, like you just now, that they have been dismantling this. But the Democrats, they're calling for civil war. It's crazy. All of them now. You see it all everywhere. Kamala was just talking tough. I was like, whoa, girl. our dude or whoever that is that's opposing us there. But I was like, wow, these guys are really, really, throwing it down. Now, we've talked about how, we probably lose cities. I think we talked about 15 to 17 different cities. They're all blue cities, and you look at a map of the United States where all of the congressional races are, all the counties and so forth. It's pretty much red all over the United States except for those big cities, those blue cities. So I could see how there's not going to be a civil war. They want a civil war, but it's not going to be that. It's going to be you guys are going to throw off the American government because the only time you talk shit about the Constitution is when you guys are out of office and you're trying to get power again. And once you're in power, you don't care about the Constitution. You come after our constitutional rights like crazy. So we can't let them get back in power.
Yeah. And I think that's the beautiful thing that's happening right now. And I know a lot of people out there, listen, I got my audience and then we got our DEF CON audience out there and everybody's like, where's accountability? Where are the arrests? Where are the things happening? Back in January, when all this stuff started really moving, I said, look, the Epstein files were coming out. And I said, guys, listen, Todd Blanchett said that we've released everything that we can release. And what that means is that anything that's under current investigation or the compromise that they're keeping for themselves to use to get people, to pressure them, to coerce them or whatever, is going to be held back. And there was actually something interesting that happened with the Epstein files. Remember when they opened it up to Congress and they had this room where congressmen can go in there and they could search the Epstein files? Well, the one thing to realize is that was monitored. Every search term that those congressmen put into that computer was monitored.